I did that so that it was sort of intense.
Oh, right. Okay, you can stand a little closer. All right, we get a little
Oh, sorry.
There's a problem. Yeah, exactly. Here, on the end of you. Don't stay out there. Don't stay out of the shotgun. All right, ready? There you go. Got it ready? No? Okay, good. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here at the Northwest Interagency Coordination Center. We're here to give you an update on the fire season here in Oregon and across the Pacific Northwest. Handling our fire season is a team sport, so before I start, I'd like the individuals behind me to introduce themselves and their agency affiliation. So if you have specific questions, you know I have these experts behind me. So start over here.
Josh O'Connor, work for the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service out of Portland here in the Pacific region, and I'm the Northwest Chair for the Multi-Agency Coordinating Group.
Mariana Reese-Temple, and I serve as the Oregon State Fire Marshal.
Good afternoon, everyone. Kyle Williams, Deputy Director of Fire Operations at the Oregon Department of Forestry.
Afternoon, Bruce Bound. I'm the Australian liaison with the Australian New Zealand contingent.
Good afternoon, Lorraine Guillory with Oregon and Washington Bureau of Land Management, Fire Operations Specialist.
Good afternoon, my name is Merv George and I'm the Deputy Regional Forester for the United States Forest Service.
Hello everyone, my name is Killa Kane. I'm the Acting Fire Fuels and Aviation Director for the Pacific Northwest U.S. Forest Service.
Hello everyone, my name is Ted Pierce. I'm the Center Manager for the Northwest Coordination Center. I work for the BLM, but all of the geographic area, all of the agencies in our geographic area.
Thank you. So Ted was just showing me the center. We had a briefing earlier, and then I was meeting some of the crew here who work here at the center. And I think what's important to know for Oregonians and the entire Pacific Northwest is that you have a team of really skilled people who have been working tirelessly for weeks, months at this point, in a very unprecedented fire season. And we still have a fire season to go. So I'm going to make some opening comments about where we've been and then talk about some of the things that we were talking about today. First of all, before I get into details, I want to say thank you to the folks who've been on the line. Across the Pacific Northwest, we have 6,500 folks still out in the field. I know it might feel like the season is kind of subdued a little bit, but there are 6,500 individuals across the Pacific Northwest still dealing with fire. People have been putting their personal lives on the line, putting them on hold, being out every single day for weeks now. And I just want to say thank you to our firefighters, our support crews, our incident commanders, everybody at all levels of supervision who have been fighting these fires, keeping our community safe and keeping people safe. And we've had a very tough fire season so far. But luckily we have some really committed individuals across the region who are keeping everybody safe. So I just want to start off by thanking them. As you know, this has been an unprecedented fire season. We've seen a lot of activity, particularly here in Oregon on the eastern side of the state. It's been aggressive. It's been very difficult on a lot of people, a lot of communities, and it's not over. So I think that's the top message for today. We're not done yet, even though it's the end of August. To date, across Oregon, it's been over 1.5 million acres have burned here in Oregon. For perspective, our 10-year average for an entire fire season is 640,000 acres burned, and we're at 1.5 million here, and it's not even September yet. We've lost 32 homes and an additional 99 outbuildings this year from wildfires. We're still assessing all that damage, but those are the quick numbers. And typically, we haven't even gotten into the most dangerous part of the fire season, which we're entering into here late August and early September. I know we all remember 4 years ago, the fires in 2020 over Labor Day weekends that affected a lot of communities, and we're going into that weekend now. One of the things that we continue to do here in Oregon is to apply the lessons we've learned from the years before. We're prioritizing fire prevention. We always have to maintain a state of readiness with our available resources. We have incredibly strong interagency coordination, and we rely on that a lot. And we've really taken an all hands, all lands approach to our wildfire hazard mitigation across the state. Daily, the folks here at the Northwest Interagency Coordination Center are exemplifying that approach and keeping a lot of us safe. So this center here is the operational hub of the Pacific Northwest Coordinated Wildland Firefighting Effort. So we are in partnership with the state of Washington and a number of our federal partners, federal agencies that we have representatives from here today. The leaders here through the center coordinate the resources at the local, state, and federal level. They monitor weather conditions, fuel conditions, trying to really get ahead by looking at the data and knowing what's coming at us. The fire management leadership here ensures we can prepare and respond effectively to wildfires, protecting lives and communities and our natural resources. The natural resources and the losses here, particularly on the east side, have been substantial, and that is always part of the equation that we're trying to protect. So again, I want to thank everybody for what they're doing. So let's look towards the remainder of the fire season. This interagency leadership team is working to make sure that we can stay ahead of the game, deal with the things that are still in the landscape, but there could be some additional ones coming. One of the things that we talked about in the briefing today was the weather. We had the meteorological expert here at the center talk to us about the upcoming weather. We're all aware from past experience on the west side of the mountains, the potential east winds. One of the things I want to point out to folks, if we have another east wind event like we had 4 years ago, particularly with the Labor Day wildfires, we'll have a 5 to 7 day advance notice to know that they're coming, and we will be responding accordingly. Right now, we're feeling optimistic, but we should always stay prepared. The weather can change, and we have to be prepared. There are still quite a number of wildfires on the west side of the Cascades, and those east winds can come on pretty quickly. Right now, I think we're all feeling good a little bit about the humidity and the rain we've been having, but the conditions are still dry. A day of rain is not going to solve this problem. In fact, one of the things that I was learning today is our fire seasons have changed. You used to see a lot more reset in a fire season where you'd have more substantial rain to kind of reduce the dryness of the fuel. We're just not seeing that. One day of some moisture is not going to substantially change that. So conditions are dry. We're going into Labor Day weekend. It will be dry again. So people have to be very cautious about what they're doing. One of the priorities for the team here is to reinforce the lines that are out there now for the existing fires that are on the landscape, holding those lines, continuing to be prepared in case the weather changes significantly, and they are monitoring that. A couple things that I would like to say from the briefing this morning, or just this afternoon, is I really want to urge Oregonians to be cautious. You have a responsibility to watch how you're using fire. This is a vacation weekend. People are going to be thinking about having outdoor fires. You have to be safe. People cannot become complacent. We have to do our part to prevent fires from starting. The other issue is I ask people to be patient out there. Even if you don't see smoke on the landscape or on the horizon, there are fires out there. We have crews out there who are working hard on the roads. We have equipment on roadways. People have to be patient. We are not out of the woods yet, and a lot of folks are working hard to deal with the fires that are out there right now. I do want to add that what I was learning today is this group continually reassesses where we are. They're focusing on the strategic intent of moving ahead and being cognizant of those initial attacks when fires do pop up, making sure we're out there as quickly as we can be, pre-positioning resources, making sure we can be on the attack when we can. I just also want to say that the incident command teams that we have across the state, and I don't even remember what the number was, but right now we have 6 incident command teams dealing with a series of complex wildfires. They're wildfire complexes that are also complex, and they are out there. There's fatigue out there, right? We've had people working for almost 2 months now. And so they're also assessing, can we make sure we can get people reassigned? Do we have the human capital actually to do the work on the ground? And I really want to thank them and commend them for taking care of each other and making sure people are staying safe while they're also out there doing their job. And we're going to continue to collaborate, be strategic. We are successful to the degree that we can be in a very difficult fire season because of the folks behind us here. They know how to work together. They know how to prioritize. They know where to put those resources. I saw this really wonderful large map that literally has magnets of where the planes go and the helicopters go. I mean, this is a sophisticated crew here, and we're dealing with a very tough fire season. So my final message to Oregonians before we take some questions for the experts behind me is be smart about what you're doing. Protect your homes. Be aware. Be ready to evacuate. Be aware of what's going on in your community. Just because the summer seems to be ending and it's Labor Day and school's coming back doesn't matter. Fire season is still here. It won't be over until there's a lot more rain and a lot shorter days. We've got a couple months to go. So I need Oregonians to be cognizant of that, pay attention. And again, thank the folks behind me who represent hundreds and hundreds of people, thousands of folks who are working hard every day to keep us safe in Oregon, in Washington, and across other regions of the country. And a special shout out to our folks from Australia and New Zealand crew who are here. We've had help from other states, other countries. We have moved mountains that make sure we can keep Oregon safe from fire. And I really appreciate the partnership from everybody here. So with that, I think we'll take some questions. And I am not the expert, so Roxy's going to make sure you get the right.
Hey, I'm Alex from the Oregon Capital Chronicle. My question is related to funding. I think ODS like 2.5 times its budget this summer. More than a third of the acres that burned are private. I'm wondering if there's any proposals coming to more equitably share the cost of wildfire with private landowners, or if this is going to be a sort of like mad dash on the general fund come next year.
Well, let's thank you for the question. Big fires cost a lot of money. There is day-to-day tracking about how much of these the fires are costing us. So I just want to give a quick estimate, and I will say I believe the Board of Forestry that's meeting next week here in Oregon will have a little bit more refined details about where we are in terms of costs. Overall, all of our fires this season have cost about $214 million to fight. The positive thing there, and that's on the forestry side, it's about $27 million on the state fire marshal side. What I want folks to know is several of these large fires, more than several, have federal emergency management status, so we will get a significant level of reimbursement, but that sometimes can be delayed. So one of the things we're working on is making sure we understand the cash flow issues. The emergency board in September will have a request to release some reserves that are already set aside for firefighting costs. So we're monitoring that with the agencies and with the chief financial officer to make sure people get paid. We'll deal with the bills later, but people need to get paid, and then we'll deal with the long-term funding issues. In terms of the legislative session coming up, we do have a work group right now looking at how we pay for fire costs here in the state. It's being led up by my team, Doug on my team, Doug Graff, has been sitting down with stakeholders saying we need to figure out a plan here. That didn't happen in the last legislative session. We need to come into next session with a plan to pay for fire costs, fire prevention, and all the work we need to do. So I'm committed to that. I don't have any more details at this point, but we have the near-term issues of paying the bills, but we do need to have a longer-term conversation about paying for these costs in the long term. Fire seasons are not going to get easier, and we as a state need to figure out how to have consistent funding so we can do the work we need to do.
Heather Roberts with the Oregon Radio News Network. Looking at pre-positioning, I assume for the state fire marshal, the pre-positioning of crews, knowing that we're going into the holiday weekend with a lot of campers out there, can you tell us where those, if at all, those crews are going to be pre-positioned this weekend?
Anybody who wants to talk about pre-positioning?
I can speak to it.
Come on up to you.
So pre-positioning resources right now, we're just getting some resources back available from being committed to all the large fires that we've had, both in region and nationally. So as far as locations, we don't have a whole lot of set locations right now due to the fact that those resources are still coming back off of days off. We've been in a very short period for not having any replacement resources on the fires that we have. So we're at the point now where we're building up the initial attack forces and getting resources pre-positioned around the geographic area for whatever the activity will bring over the weekend. So all over.
And then maybe as it relates to the Office of State Fire Marshal in terms of looking at communities, we don't have any indicators that really necessitate pre-positioning certain parts of Oregon. You heard from our governor that we're not anticipating that significant east wind event. And with all of us off fires, we're really in a good place to be able to be flexible and nimble and surge if we need to. So at this point, we don't see the need for that.
And the good thing is that the weather has been a little kinder, so people are beginning a little bit of a break. So people are kind of resting up for the next round. And that's a good thing, right? And I can tell you from looking at the maps and the crews back here, they really understand all the resources available. And we do have the ability, as was said, to be nimble and flexible. And we, again, want to get ahead as much as we can, but, hopefully we're going to get a little break with the wind here in the next couple of weeks. That will help us be prepared if we have we do anticipate some additional large events before the end of fire season. It's been the norm. We should expect them to be ready for them.
Is it still accurate that there are 12 large fires on the landscape today? I know it's always changing, and I don't cover this very often. So is that still a correct number? What's the sort of state of play across the state?
I'll do my best. I would say that they're in the state. We currently have 6 large, like you said, fires are being managed by incident management teams, complex incident management teams. But across the state of Oregon, you're probably closer to 20 large fires still that are being managed. Some of those are being managed at the local level with local resources, local forest or local state or local BLM resources managing those fires. But active large fires within Oregon, it's in the 12th number, but large fires that are being managed by the incident management teams. We have 6 incident management teams, and each one of those teams is managing 2 to 6 to 10 fires within that area. So it's really kind of hard to say exactly how many are.
Okay.
You can look at the report on the Northwest Coordination Center's website, and they'll show how many large fires currently on the ground in each state.
Yeah, but looking at the map, it's just a lot.
Oh, well, yeah, there is statistics to it on the morning report.
I thought you did a good example. Yeah, so there's a lot of little flames, right? And all those flames together is one complex.
Right.
Yeah, on the west side. Yeah, so, yeah. But, there's mop-up operations, a lot of things happening. A lot of that's reverted to the local level and crews who are dealing with that. So,
Let's go with speakers.
Yeah, John Adams, KPTV. You described this as a significant fire season, and now over the last 5 years, we've seen a 3 significant fire seasons. How concerning is it that we've seen years that have been spikes compared to the historical trends, and is this something that is going to be a trend going forward? And if so, what's the message to Oregonians if we're going to continue to see these extremely active fire seasons?
I'm very concerned. It's not going to get particularly better going forward. One of the things I was hearing from today was, and seeing the graphs of the high temperatures in June, highest temperatures ever in July, and when you have that amount of dryness on the landscape and what that does to the fuel, and then you bring in the dry lightning and unfortunately human behavior that causes fires, it's not going to get better from that standpoint. What does need to change is how each community has become more resilient, protecting their homes, protecting their properties. That's why we have the wildfire hazard map conversation going on. People need to be thinking about what it means to live where they are, where wildfire can be on the land, and that they could be put in danger. It requires us to think about long-term here in the state around resilience planning, firefighting resources. We just need to be better prepared. This is very expensive fire season. Because of the hard work of the folks here and all the crews across the state, we've been able to protect a lot of communities. But I can tell you, this team and what we've been doing this season has been pushed to the brink. We have tapped into every resource we can. Every morning they were sitting there at the height of the season in July trying to prioritize resources. Climate change has really changed what is happening from a weather perspective and the dryness perspective and the amount of moisture on the landscape. So what we do as human beings has to change, and we have to continue to be prepared in a very sustainable way. and also take responsibility of what it means to live where you do in this state and in the times we are living in.
Yes. On the vein of funding in the legislative session, any proposals specifically to help communities and homeowners pardon? The wildfire map is obviously not a parcel level thing or a property level thing. What is the state doing on a community prevention level besides sort of piecemeal grants?
I can speak to what is in existence currently. Our agency, the Department of State Fire Marshal, was mandated to create a community wildfire risk reduction program that came out of Senate Bill 762. In addition to that, there were grant fundings to help prioritize resilience in communities, defensible space, and mitigation. We hope that continues. We hope that conversation continues. We know that it's a priority among some of our legislators and certainly our governor, and I think that that's something that we hope to see continue. In terms of home hardening, there was a directive for the BCD to create a report that's going to be delivered in September. And so we expect that report will be delivered in September that talks about what a home hardening program looks like, what are the priorities of that in terms of grants. And so we expect to see that come out in September.
But on the governor's side, is there a plan for money behind it?
Well, when I was Speaker of the House, I was actively involved in the Senate Bill 762 investments in the 2021 session. I would like to get back to that level of funding. It's certainly something I'm looking at as I put my budget together that's due here in the fall. Again, it goes back to that funding conversation that we're having in that work group. How do we provide the revenue streams to pay for that? But I do think it is something that Oregonians want to see funded, so I'm going to do everything I can to get more money into my budget. But that work group is going to be important because what we do know from the grants that came out in 2021 through 23, they did work. They were very helpful for communities. We need to do more of that, and it's going to be up to us and lawmakers, frankly, to figure out how to pay for it. I will probably put a very big ask on the table for that.
Can I really quickly ask, just point blank, would you consider a proposal to reincrease the severance tax in order to fund wildfire for private landowners?
I don't want to get ahead on that topic because that is the purview of that work group, right? So, but all ideas need to be on the table because this is a significant issue, and right now we do not have the resources to do this on a reliable basis, and that has to change.
Governor, you made a lot of requests that I don't frankly understand very well to the federal government about a number of different. I think basically you want more wiggle room in rangeland. Has all that been granted? Are there any things that have been withheld that concern you or might create difficulties? And sorry, I have a two-parter. Have you seen any economic analysis of economic impacts for ranchers or whatever out there beyond the sort of wildfire fighting costs that you said you're?
So let me start with the second question. So on the economic impacts, particularly on the eastern side of the state, impacting the agricultural sector, ranchers, rangeland fire, no, we don't have the economic numbers yet. That is something we're trying to get on, and we are starting that conversation. Recovery for us, I'm trying to get out there sooner on these discussions, start collecting the data. It's very hard to get resources from the federal government until we have some of those numbers. But I have asked, and I have the support of the federal delegation, as you've mentioned, going up to the Biden-Harris administration about flexibility on access to different rangeland. We have a bunch of ranchers who have cattle with nowhere to go because of the fires there. So we're trying to, our message to the federal government is, give us all the flexibility that we can possibly have, because this is very unique given the depth of the fire season and the types of sectors that have been impacted. We're going to need some help from USDA and other resources. So that was in that letter. We have not heard back yet on those, but we are pushing hard because I was out in Hardy County last month while I think it was Wildfire and the other ones there, telephone. I heard directly from ranchers about what they were losing literally that day and what they were trying to do to save their cattle, save their lands, for grazing, and it is going to be felt for years. And so we are starting as soon as we can to get more help from the federal government and really understand the overall damage. And hopefully we'll have more going into legislative session so we can see if the state can actually be a partner there as well. So.
Do you have time for one more, and if it's only, go for it.
This might be for more of the federal folks, but I'm hearing from reporters in California that there's really low morale amongst the firefighters. The 25 interior, the FY25 Interior Environment Related Agency Appropriation Act passed the House, but it's kind of poison-pilled. Firefighters were hoping for these pay increases that were part of it. Can you tell me a little bit what morale is like, and I guess do they understand where this is at?
Yeah, I can speak to that. So we are continually evaluating the morale of our employees, and what we want across the agency is we want fair pay for the work that's occurring. We understand that costs have risen, they continue to rise, and so that overall impediment to just any of us in our livelihood and what that looks like. What we know is we have really dedicated firefighters that come from all over the nation to help when there is a need. And we continually advocate for the health and safety of what that looks like for our employees. Fatigue is real, and that can affect morale too. And so our leadership is very well aware of how do we approach the increased complexities, more fires on the landscape, the costs, balance everything, as well as truly ensuring that we are taking care of our employees and what that looks like from a morale standpoint, certainly, and an overall health and well-being. Their physical fitness and their mental health is all part of that. And so it's a complex issue that we are dedicated to all collaboratively, all of us as partners, recognizing what that looks like and how we're going to address that as we continue in these coming years with this new situation on the landscape. Thank you.
And I will say, the state, federal, and local agencies are going to do everything they can with the resources they have. But since I feel like I have more flexibility here, I will say to the folks in Congress, let's not play politics with our firefighting resources. When I speak with governors across the West, Democrat and Republican, we need our federal agencies to have the staffing, the resources they need to come and be partners to fight these wildfires. And so I would hope that Congress doesn't play games with this budget and actually pass budgets that will keep all of our states across the country safer during wildfire season.
Can I ask just one off subject?
Any other fire questions before we?
Sorry.
Okay.
4002 takes effect September 1st.
I'm sorry?
Senate bill. House bill.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
September 1st, which is Sunday, I think. Are the counties, cities, is the state ready for that illegal?
So the issue around decriminalization of, and in this case, recriminalizing small possession of illegal drugs does change. The law is changing. Each community is coming up with their own response. And you will see some communities that will have additional resources for deflection, keeping people out of the jail and on a pathway to recovery and treatment. And every county's in a different spot. What we did here in Multnomah County is they're gonna need a little bit more time, but that doesn't mean there aren't gonna be new resources happening even in the month ahead while they're waiting to open up their deflection center. It's gonna look different in every community, but I have been impressed with how everyone is mobilized to come up with ways to say the first or second time should not be go to jail. It should be, can we get you into treatment? Can we get you into help? And I think across the state we're seeing counties stepping up, trying to figure that out. And what we're doing now is we want to track what's happening, and so we go into the next legislative session, really understand what has been happening on the ground, are we having good outcomes, and how we should fund it differently or more going into next year budget. Thanks everybody, appreciate it.